I'm Elenita, and I want to welcome you to the Brodart Tell Me More Horror webinar. Today, three authors will be sharing their stories with us, and our moderator, Stephanie Sandaula, is the branch services supervisor for youth and adult services at the Somerset County Library System of New Jersey. She has built a career spanning both publishing and librarianship with a focus on reference services and collection development. She also served as an associate editor at Library Journal. When she's not championing books and readers, you can usually find her baking, gardening, or enjoying a good memoir. Over to you, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you, Elenita. That was a lovely description too. So I feel very flattered too. So as Elenita said, I'm Stephanie. I'm really happy to be here. I love working with Elenita on these webinars. They are so fun. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it because I want to leave as much time as possible to chat with authors and save time at the end for Q&A from you who are listening. So we're just going to do a brief introduction, then I'm going to jump right into the questions. So first we have Hannah Whitten. I'm just looking in order on my screen, author of her latest book, Reliquary, which is just so fun. And then Hannah, do you just want to share a little bit about yourself, a brief bio, or anything you want to share with our listeners here
Sure.
today?
Hi, I'm Hannah Whitten. Reliquary is my horror debut. It's actually my sixth overall book. I have two complete fantasy series that are out. There's the Wilderwood duology, which is For the Wolf and For the Throne, and then my dogs are talking about that one apparently. And then the Nightshade Crown trilogy. It starts with the Foxglove King. So this is my sixth book, my first horror. But I've always been a horror kid. I'm a huge horror movie buff. It's the main genre that I read, so I'm really, really excited to get to contribute to that genre finally. This book I actually wrote way back in 2020, I think. And it was just kind of a fun project that I would work on for myself in between deadlines for my contracted books. So I'm really excited that it's getting to be a real book. So Reliquary follows Claire. She's our main character, and whenever a freak boating accident killed her entire family whenever she was a teenager, she was raised by an emotionally distant aunt, and because of that, she feels very kind of untethered in the world. She is looking to other people to kind of give her shape. She says in the book that she doesn't know how to be real on her own. So when she stumbles into a relationship with the very wealthy Elias in college, it just makes sense for her to stay in it. So whenever the book opens, they are going to get married. They're engaged. They're living in a house that he bought because, again, he is very wealthy. She's kind of working a dead-end job and coasting. And their relationship is not great. It is very obviously emotionally abusive from the outside looking in. But again, Claire doesn't really know how to do relationships. And to leave this relationship in particular would feel very complicated and uncomfortable. So she's just going with it until Elias dies of a mysterious neurological illness that has the hospital stumped. And Claire didn't know that he was dealing with anything like this. So she's blindsided too. And she gets blindsided yet again whenever his estranged, incredibly wealthy family reaches out and invites her to their private island for a funeral. She accepts the invitation. She goes to the private island, and things get really weird really fast. Um, his family is very open and loving and welcoming, but there obviously is something that they're not telling her. They have made their fortune in deep sea research and in creating submarines, and there's just something off about the whole situation. But she doesn't really let herself think about that because, again, it would be uncomfortable, and they've been so nice to her, and she just wants a family. And so she's just kind of going along to get along until the tentacles start happening.
I love that just overall description. And the tentacles are some of the creepiest parts. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but you guys have to read it. So, because
I
the
had a
sea
really
is
good time.
creepy. No, the ocean is
Yes.
creepy. So it's a perfect setting. But we're
I
going to dive into
told
that
my
later.
publicist that this book was mostly born of my fear of A, the deep ocean, and B, billionaires. So all the things I'm
Mhm.
most afraid of.
Yes, completely scary. It really is. Oof. I'm shivering just thinking about it all over again. Great. Thank you so much for that little introduction. And then Vincent, you're next on my screen. So do you want to introduce yourself? And I love the title of your latest book, by the way, too. You should have been nicer to my mother. It's just such a really fun title. So do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your new book?
Of course. Yeah, so my book, You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom, is well, people actually, sorry, let me introduce myself. My name is Vincent Tirado. I am a non-binary Afro-Latin that generally I've always written horror. So this is my fourth book. I've written two other horror books. It's Burn Down, Rise Up, and We Don't Swim Here. Those are my two YAs, and then I have another book. We came to welcome you. This was my adult debut. You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom is the next one that I is coming out. Um, I just generally really love horror, and I love finding anything that is particularly unsettling and like building up the dread. This book. A lot of people talk about certain books being like a love letter to a genre or, to a place. This book is a hate letter to my extended family for treating my mother poorly. I am extremely petty and they will know it for the rest of their days. Um, it is about a young woman who, after her grandfather passes away, she goes to, the family estate to do a reading of the will. And she's there with her many extended relatives. It is quite a large family. And has to sort of deal with all of their like, various extremely conflicting personalities. Just so she can like figure out, okay, what am I getting and can I leave now? But instead of being told what they are inheriting, they're given a warning in the will that says, one of you is not who you say you are. One of you is El Baka, the demon that I made a pact with for all my wealth. You have to find out who it is and get rid of it, or you will all be damned. And things go real sideways right after that. Obviously, the family is not too happy about like, yo, where's my money? Where's my inheritance? Where like who's getting the cars? Who's getting the estate? All that stuff. And the young woman, the main character, she's just like, okay, this is very weird, but Papi Ramon was a pastor, so I'm going to like maybe believe what he's saying because I know that he used to exorcise demons in his day, so not too far off. As she is like trying to figure out who may be the demon, she also finds out that someone in the family was responsible for her mother's death. And things get taken from 10 to like 32 from there. Um, yeah, again, it is a hate letter to my extended relatives. But it's also a really fun story about feminist rage on behalf of your mother. So if there are any daughters who like feel that righteous fury against like, oh, why is, my auntie like this? Why is my uncle like this? This is a good book for you. This is a great book for you.
It was a perfect book for me for that reason. So I absolutely loved it. So thank you so much. And then Joanna, you're next. So I'm so excited to talk about Bone of My Bone. Oh, this was just such a fun, delightful read. And I said that as a horror book. It is really fun though, too. So do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your latest book?
Yeah, so I'm Joanna. I have, no, will be my fourth book, my third horror book. I also have a children's book out already, and they're all kind of creepy, kind of fantastical, and a little fun. So Bone of My Bone is set during the 30 Years' War in Germany, which is genuinely one of the most horrific wars that has ever been. If we look at loss of life, I think it may be the deadliest conflict known to man. If we just look at how many civilians passed away, in some areas it may have been as much as 90 to 100%. So as soon as I heard of that conflict when I was in university, I thought like, oh, this is a really, really good setting for a horror novel, if just for the setting alone, right? Just the time period. And then when I dug a little more into like Germanic and specifically German folklore, I found all these revenants that specifically become revenants because they're not being buried properly. So that really inspired me because I thought, okay, if you have a war, like a war that is so deadly that some villages, basically everyone passes away and there's no one left to bury the dead, what might happen? And I thought another thing that I could combine that with is basically religion. Because like Hannah said, she's afraid of billionaires in the deep sea, and I think that's a very realistic fear. I have a fear of corpses, which I personally think is a very silly fear to have, because what's that body gonna do to me? But yeah, I find them kind of scary, but also very fascinating. So one of the things I find very fascinating about religion, and then specifically Catholicism, is how they deal with dead bodies. because if you think about it, I mean, the veneration of saints, we have a jawbone here from this particular saint, and we are very, very happy about this jawbone. So the story basically focuses on three characters. Namely, a nun, Sister Ursula. She is basically a nun on the run ever since her convent got attacked. So she's on her way to another convent trying to find shelter there. We have a peasant girl named Elspeth. She is on her way to her aunt, who's her like last remaining relative, if still alive. And we're following Otto, who's a mercenary. And so Sister Ursula and Elspeth sort of happen to join forces super early in the book as they escape a band of soldiers. And as they flee into the forest, they stumble upon a man who is very actively dying. And he has with him a skull, and he basically tells them like, "Hey, this is the skull of a saint, and this is a very special skull because if you return this skull to the body it belongs to, you get a wish because the saint will be very, very pleased with you if you do this." So both girls obviously have plenty to wish for, so they decide to undertake this quest, even though Elsbeth is a Protestant and therefore doesn't really believe any of this is true. And at the same time, Otto the mercenary is bound to a necromancer who has his own reasons for chasing after this skull. And so, yeah, there's a lot of corpse stuff in there, but I also thought it was my way to sort of deal with the idea. I mean, I don't find skeletons particularly scary, and I thought it would be really interesting to see how people might relate to like an actual skull, thinking it's sort of sentient, that it's worth talking to. So yeah, that's basically what Bone of My Bone is about.
Great, thank you. And that was a lovely overview too. So I'm going to just kind of ask questions to all of you round robin style. One of my first questions is, how do you choose a setting for your story? And I love, especially for Hannah and Vincent, I love when a house is like a setting. I feel like in both of your books, like that house is, it's creepy. It's like holding these secrets. And Johanna, like your setting, I love like that historical element too. So I just wanted to see how each of you thought of that setting. Was it intentional thinking of the house or the atmosphere, the time period as this creepy setting? So Hannah, why don't you go first with this one?
So the Harrow Point, which is the house that's on the private island in Reliquary, I had a very specific picture in my brain of what I wanted that to look like. It's got some really specific architecture. Um, so yeah, I definitely felt like that was one of like the first mental images that I got of the book was of this giant glass wall that the tide comes up. And so sometimes it seems like the house is underwater and then, the tide goes down and you can actually see out, and how that kind of related to the way that Claire, like the longer that she stays there, is like being pulled deeper and deeper into something that she can't get out of. Um, so the two really talked to each other for me and became a big part of how the rest of the book shaped up.
Okay, great, thank you. And I really think that's really true too. Like I just that you almost see the mental image of the house as you're reading, and I really love that in your story. So, and Vincent, what about you? Because that house is just full of secrets, full of drama. I love the twists and turns.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the how do you call it? The inspiration from the story, while it does come from my own hatred of my family, a lot of it was also inspired by Knives Out. I loved that, like, oh, they're all coming together for the reading of the will in this house. And I decided, okay, let's shake things up and let's make them stay within this house and deal with the memories within that house. So the main character, Xiomara, she used to come to the house a lot as a kid, and so she has like a lot of very vague memories that she's now trying to place, like what happened here and like what happened there. Um, Part of it was also inspired by the fact my family also like owns a couple of houses in the Dominican Republic. And so when my grandmother passed this past November, now my family's like up in a freaking uproar about like who's getting the house. It's a lot of it's very weird. So I always knew that that was going to be the case when writing this, and I thought like, okay, I think this would be a really fun way to sort of like engage with the idea of like a house being part of an inheritance that may not be a blessing after all.
Yeah, and I really like that the house is part of the inheritance. It kind of just adds that really like suspenseful element. I love the Knives Out comparison because I love Knives Out as well. So that was really fun. So, and Joanna, what about you? I love the setting here. It's just like you kind of feel like you're going along with them on this journey. Just so immersive.
Right, it's kind of like road trip horror.
Yes. And I
So
love
we're
that. Yeah. I was like, where are they going
yeah.
to go next? We don't know. And that's the fun part of it, really.
Right, so yeah, they are in Bavaria, which is now part of like modern day Germany. So they're in the woods for a large chunk. We go see a convent, we see a village, we see a bunch of stuff. And I think just by virtue of setting it during the 30 Years' War, it makes most sense to set it in what is now modern day Germany. And I chose Bavaria mainly because it has that big forest, and for some other like historical reasons. Because I mean, the 30 Years' War, it lasts for 30 years, and I wanted to set it a little further in, mainly because what you find with this war is that, for example, people who decide to join up as soldiers at the start have very different reasons for doing so compared to people at the end. And I figured like the further in we are, the more we see the horrors of it, and I figured like Bavaria would be just a good setting for it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you chose that setting. I really like the road trip element of, yeah, it's just, yeah, such a lovely setting too. So my next question for all of you is a tough one for me because I feel like whenever I read a book, I usually have a favorite character that stands out. And in each of your books, I had trouble deciding who my favorite was because I like so many of the characters, even the flawed ones who are like really terrible characters. I'm just like, well, I'm really sympathetic towards them. So I wanted to ask you, all three of you, if you have a favorite character, because I'm still torn in all of your books, which is usually very rare for me, as Elenita knows. So Hannah, what about you? Because I like Claire, but I kind of like the family too. I mean, I know
Yeah.
they're not the best people, but like I feel, yeah, it's
It's
tough.
fun because there's really not a good one in the bunch.
Yeah.
But the character that I had the most fun with was probably Deirdre.
Yes, she was fun.
Um, because she is awful and
Yeah.
isn't really like trying to hide the fact that she's awful. Like she's kind of the first one that you kind of get a little bit of a from,
Yeah.
and that was a good time.
Yeah. That's so fun. Thank you. And then Vincent, what about you? Because there's such a full cast of characters, and I love Naomi. She was great. But I also like, I don't know. Yeah, I have a soft spot for like just really kooky relatives.
I have a weird like fixation on the aunts, particularly,
Yes, yes.
mostly because they're such gossips, which is
Mm-hmm.
like a huge thing in Latino culture, right? Like we love
Yep.
passing chisme back and forth. So like even though like they're terrible people, absolutely terrible, like I cannot stress that enough. I also feel like if they were like real people, technically they are, they're based on my family. I would be kind of like leaning in anytime they talk because I'm just like, oh, what is the tea for today? So that's, I have a very strange fixation on them just for that reason.
Oh, I love that because yeah, they really are gossips, and it's kind of endearing because they just are who they are. So, okay, Joanna, what about you? Like, I like Sister Ursula, but these uh these demons that come out also have their own backstories, and it's fun to read about those. And I was super invested.
I think they were all fun to write too. I will say because the Necromancer is of course a little over the top villain.
Hmm.
Also, I think has the clearest character development. I would say that like Elspeth's real spunky, so that's pretty fun. And I think maybe the Skull was the most fun to write to do like that old-timey English voice. That of course she doesn't really have to stick to a lot of. I mean, she sticks to some conventions with like sainthood initially, and then we sort of see that go out of the window real fast. So I would have to say like maybe she's my favorite.
That was really fun too. So I feel like that's your favorite. So that's such a great answer. So thank you so much. And I really like how all three of you kind of play off of the aspect of like chosen family and even like biological family and like all the drama that comes along with families. So I wanted to know, how did your own families respond to your latest book? I know I see laughter from Hannah already. So I hope this isn't too much of a ridiculous question, but I'm always curious about that too.
No, my family has not read it and probably won't.
So that's totally fine.
At this point, we're kind of in a benevolent standoff where they've realized that it's not for them. And so they're just like, that's fun, honey. And we're proud of you, but I don't need to read it. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably best for all of us.
Yeah, I love that too. Vincent, is your family the same way? Because I know this is pretty much based on your extended family.
Yeah, and I'm honestly the only like horror fan in the entire family. So I'm safe in that they will never even get to like the dedication, which is to them. And it says again, you should have been nicer to my mom. So yeah, I'm not afraid. They're never gonna read it.
Okay. And then Joanna, what about you?
So my wife is very superstitious, so she tries not to read anything until it's actually out because she feels otherwise she might jinx it. So she still has it to come. She does know because like I did talk to her obviously when writing this. So my parents, like my mom might read it. My dad, I don't think so. I mean, for them, right, English is a second language too, so that does add to it being a bit more difficult for them. My sisters have read it. They keep asking me, "Can you please write something that is like less horrible?" Because they don't like horror that much, but like they will read my books and they'll be like, yeah, no, that was really good. Like we still don't like horror, but that was good. So like I'm slowly converting them, I hope. But
Oh my God, I love that. I love that they're asking something less horrible too. You're just like,
it's
I
like
don't
I'm
know
writing a
about that.
children's book. Here, go read that. That was less horrible.
Exactly. Oh my God, that's hilarious. So thank you for indulging me in that too. And then I did want to address a reader question that someone had submitted. And this is for pretty much for Joanna and Hannah, but Vincent, I want to get your thoughts too. So the listener was asking that horror and romance are both huge right now. And some readers might not think that they coexist in one novel, but they definitely do coexist. And it's really fun to watch them coexist too. So, in your writing, do you feel that these two genres were a natural fit for one another? And what do you think of the blend of horror and romance?
They're definitely a natural fit for me because they're my two like most read genres. So it just kind of makes sense that whenever I'm doing one, I'm kind of doing another. Like my fantasy work before this, I wouldn't really call any of it romantasy, but it is like fantasy that has a romance plot line in it. But they also all have a lot of body horror in them. So this is like not so much a genre switch for me as it is just kind of like a genre sidestep. Um, but I think that they go together great. Because for me, seeing a romance, like the fun part of it is watching it grow alongside like all of the conflict that surrounds it. Like that's what makes it a good time. And if you can make that conflict spooky, scary, gross, why wouldn't you?
Exactly, completely agree too. And I feel like
Also,
romance.
it might be my last question just because I have to go pick my kids up. I'm trying
Oh,
to stick
that's
around as long
okay.
as I can, but if I slip out,
Okay.
this has been great.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here too. Now's a good question to end on too. 'Cause I feel like romance can be like kind of scary, so I feel like it does go
I've
well together.
talked with friends before about how kind of the physiological reactions that you have to having a crush and being scared are very, very similar, and so
Hmm.
they go hand in hand.
Completely agree. Yeah. Joanna, I love your thoughts too, because I feel like that romance, like it is scary for them, especially as on a road trip. They don't know what's going to happen. There's so much unknown, and you're kind of like diving into like, what if we don't see each other ever again?
I think yeah, like it's kind of like Hannah said, right? Like the physical response is pretty similar, and I do think the reason why I think romance and horror do go well together is because they're both heightened states of like awareness and emotion. So they're both pretty extreme emotions. Um, I mean, I wouldn't say because I think, for example, Blood on Our Tongue was not very romantic. I would say I would probably alternate them. So this, like Bone of My Bone, is definitely very romantic. I can imagine that my next novel might not be, but I think when done well, it can really strengthen like both elements. For Bone of My Bone, I would definitely say because we're in this war situation, Elsbeth has basically lost her entire family. Sister Ursula is on the road all alone. She doesn't know how her sisters are doing either, so I think it makes a lot of sense that they're really clinging to each other. Um, and I think it's also a nice way to sort of, I don't want to say, I think if you do it well, you can strengthen, like the romance can strengthen the horror and the other way around, but at the same time, you can also give the reader a bit of a break because of its sort of relentless horror, bleakness, misery, that's really, really hard to read. So I hope that the romance also helps lighten things a little bit and like keep it manageable.
Yeah, and I think it does too. Even though I do like the horror in your book, I like the necromancer. That's just such a suspenseful delight. But yeah, I think the romance is such a good element. But Vincent, I wanted to get your thoughts too, just in general, because I think this is a great question about can romance and horror coexist, and I'd love to get everyone's thoughts here.
I was honestly gonna say what Johanna already said in that they both deal with like these heightened emotional states. I've never, well, I guess my first book, Burn Down, Rise Up, had like some aspects of romance along with the horror. But it's never been like romance has never been explicitly my strong suit. So I tend to lean horror. However, as a reader, absolutely love romance. I love romance. I love horror romance. I love the blend of not just like, oh, I'm down bad for this person all of a sudden, but also, are we getting out of here alive? Because this, the situation we're dealing with is a little bit, it's looking shaky for us fellas. I like the blend of like those two things a lot as a reader, and I hope to maybe one day I can find a way to strengthen my own skills to write one.
Okay, great. And I'm looking forward to that day. So no pressure, of course. So, and one of my favorite questions to ask, I love both of your endings. So I wanted to know, how did you know when your story was finished? I feel like that can be a really hard decision of when to be like, well, this is the final decision. And Vincent, I love the ending of your book, by the way. That is just like the perfect ending, which I rarely say for a book. So why don't you go first with that one?
That's a good one because endings are actually very difficult for me to write. I struggle with endings all the time. When I was writing We Came to Welcome You, I rewrote that ending like three times. So endings have never been my strong suit either. For this book, though, it did feel like a natural like end. It felt very natural, even though I had like my own conflicting feelings about it, which I won't spoil in any sort of way. But like maybe afterwards you and I can talk. Um, it just felt like a very natural like okay, this is how I'm gonna end it. It's going to feel abrupt, but I think that that's what's going to make it good. I also have never really had abrupt endings before. In all my novels, like they don't end as abrupt as this one does. And I think that's actually what makes it even stronger, the fact that this is what it is, and you are not going to get an after image. Like that's it. So yeah, that's how I think of this ending.
Great, thank you. And I just love that like really wonderful mental image too with your book. And Joanna, what about yours? Like, 'cause that ending is great too. Oh, I mean, like so powerful too.
I mean, I think endings are pretty hard to write too. For some of my books, I did sort of know where we were going. So for Blood on Our Tongue, for example, I did very much know the ending in advance. That's not the case for all the books I write. For this one, I mean, I will say I personally think that's not always the case, but I think for a lot of horror, like a bittersweet ending tends to have the most impact because if it's super tragic, you might risk like basically leaving your reader very disappointed and angry. And if it's super happy, I feel that would not work either with the rest of the novel. Like, is it possible to really, especially with a book like this with the 30 Years War, right? Is it possible to have a genuinely super happy ending? Difficult. So yeah, I usually just go for the stuff that is bittersweet because I also think that just makes people think a lot more. If it's bittersweet, you sort of have to sit and contemplate your feelings. So I hope in that sense, if I write endings like that, I hope that they will stick with readers longer.
Okay, great, thank you. So one of my other favorite questions is, what are you working on next, or what can we look forward to? So yeah, and Vincent, do you want to go first? I see, like, yeah,
Yeah.
just like yeah, if you're able to share,
So
not everyone's
um
able to.
my agent has only just sent it out to a bunch of editors, so we'll see. But I have finished a manuscript that is it's middle grade, so it'll my next book will be middle grade, and it's a little bit like What We Do in the Shadows for kids. So it's a very fun story about how this young girl is in danger of repeating the year because her best friend is a vampire that keeps getting her to skip class so they can go on adventures. And now she's like, I gotta lock in. I'm not trying to stay behind another year and like deal with you again. So I can't wait to see how people react to it, and I hope that I can have people react to it. Again, it's just going to editors now. It hasn't been sold, but yeah, that's what you should expect next.
I'm very excited about that as a huge fan of What We Do in the Shadows. So I am very excited. I see Joanna nodding too. So, and Joanna, what are you working on next? What can we look forward to?
So another book that is getting published by me this year is the second book in my middle grade trilogy. So that's the Triplets Grimm trilogy. So it's for every book you follow a different triplet, basically. So the first one was the oldest sister, Nell, and now for the second one we get the middle sister, Annette. And her adventure is one with pirates. It has mermaids, so all the good stuff, I would say. So yeah, like Vincent, if you need a blurb by the time like it comes out, hit me up. But yeah, for the rest, I'm working on my next adult horror novel. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's kind of going to be similar, I would say, to A Bone of My Bones. We're again doing like historical horror. This time set in the Netherlands in the 16th century, and we're dealing with the 80 Years' War. Like they had pretty long wars back in the day. So yeah, like I will spoil a little bit. It's about a group of refugees who sort of get locked in together in a church and then have to survive. It's set during winter. I mentioned earlier, like in the Netherlands, you never know what kind of weather you're gonna get. We don't know if it's gonna snow, yes or no. It doesn't snow a lot. So in the early modern time period, you had what was known as a small ice age. So the winters were pretty brutal then. So they not only have to like survive the weather, but also a possible supernatural force.
Oh, thanks. And I can't wait for that one too. So I'm adding that to my list. So very exciting. And then my last question before I open up for Q&A is, what are you reading right now? Since I always love to hear what authors are reading or watching if you're not reading anything. So any recommendations? So Vincent, do you want to share?
I know what I should be reading. So I'm part of a book club at my local library. It's something I do to get myself out of the house, to be honest. I don't even remember what. Oh, it was called The Matrix, actually. Not The Matrix, like the that was made into the book. It's or made into the movie. It's a different book called The Matrix, I think. I need to read it. I've been bogged down by other things. And then I have another book in my inbox that I need to blurb, so I need to read that as well. But on the subject of what I've been watching lately, I just finished the last season of Black Mirror. Absolutely loved it. I don't know. Black Mirror is one of those like shows where I'm just like, I wish I had more of this like all the time, even though we have 7 seasons now. But I'm like, no, but I need to re-experience all of this for the first time again. I love sci-fi horror. It's just near and dear to my heart.
Oh, completely agree about sci-fi horror. So I feel like Black Mirror feels like so fitting right now too. So thank you for sharing. So Joanna, what about you? What are you reading, watching? Want to recommend to anyone?
So I'm currently watching the second season of Wheel of Time. It's my wife's favorite series. She watched
So
it
good.
without me. So for me, it's the first time experiencing it. So for her, it's a rewatch. It was very fun because she keeps looking at me like, like, how are you liking it? But yeah, like I'm very much enjoying that. As for reading, I just finished the book The Rotting Room by Vicky Parr Hampton, which is kind of apt because it's also set in a nunnery during I believe, the 16th century. And we have a new nun, Sister Rafaela, and she joined this order. She was with a different order before. A bunch of very bad stuff happened there, so she's been sent to a different order. And they have this room of divine decomposition, also known as the rotting room, where they like leave bodies to decompose, which is already really kind of weird, honestly. And this convent also sells these bottles of what they call holy essence, and Sister Rafaela very quickly clocks that this is probably corpse juice that they're selling. So that's already super, super disgusting. And then things get worse when this nun from England arrives at their doorsteps, basically like, hey guys, I've been traveling super far, and she drops dead the same night. So they take her body to the rotting room, and this body won't decompose. So now half the convent is convinced that this woman must be a saint. And meanwhile, Sister Raphael is like, well, I don't know about any of this. And what makes it more difficult is that they're they're a cloistered order, so they can't really have any contact with the outside world. And they also have a vow of silence, so they're only allowed to speak, I think, for half an hour or an hour every day. So I really enjoyed that. I think it was a very good case of an unreliable narrator, and that's not a spoiler. You get into that pretty quickly, that maybe Sister Raphael is not the most reliable. So I just finished that, and I'm also currently reading an advanced reader's copy of Homesick by Rhiannon Grist, which is I haven't got too far into it, but this woman who moves into a sort of like very rural community in Scotland, in this very old house, and she initially thinks like, oh, it's just like a its own thing, but it turns out the house is sort of divided into two, so she has a very strange neighbor, and so I'm very curious to see where this is gonna go. I kind of hoping for like fairy horror. I don't know if that's what we're getting, but it definitely feels pretty gothic and pretty unsettling already. So I'm like having a really good time with that.
Oh my, Joanna, first of all, I'm taking notes right now if you saw me because I was like, these all sound delightful. I feel like Vincent was in the same thing where I'm like, the rotting room, I need to add this to my list immediately. This is, yeah, incredible. Thank you for those recommendations. So I actually, can I do a follow-up question before I open it up to Q&A of like, what is the scariest book you've ever read? If you have an answer, and if not, that's totally fine. But I was just like, because I was like, the decomposing, like everything just sounds great here.
I mean, I will say, I don't know if this is true for other people, but like books generally don't really scare me that much anymore. I generally find movies a lot scarier. Um, and for example, Gonjiam Asylum, which is like a found footage horror movie, that one scared me really, really badly. And I
I
think that is
love that
pretty,
one.
it's so
Really? I need
good,
to watch
right?
this. Okay. Taking notes.
Taking notes, taking notes. Yeah, no, I think I will say, even though like I do really enjoy American horror, I mean, in the Netherlands we are pretty America focused, I will say. I generally do find that non-American horror is the scariest. I think especially like Latina horror is really, really scary if it's like from Spain or any of the Southern American countries. That generally really, really terrifies me. Like Sister Death on Netflix is still very scary to me. It's probably also because there's a lot of corpse stuff, and I just generally find that pretty terrifying.
You
But
should
yeah, I'm trying to,
you should
yeah.
watch Los Espookies. That's more horror comedy.
Yeah, we watched, my wife and I watched the first season, so we still have to watch the second one, but we thought that one was pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very fun.
Okay. I'm
Um,
taking notes on all these too. Yeah, Vincent, go ahead.
yeah, so like Johanna, I books don't really scare me, and honestly, neither do movies. Like I watch like the Saw movies for fun. Like that's like a yearly occurrence for me. I'm just like, I'm part of like this all horror group on Discord where like every month we're just like we're binge watching like some horror movies. So like obviously every Halloween we're binge watching all the Halloween movies like start to finish. So those don't scare me as much as like horror video games. Because now I feel like I'm in it, and it's like, now why am I in this situation? I just would not be here. Um, yeah, I don't know. I Most things just don't scare me. I do feel like a sense of dread about certain like art pieces. So I recently watched Iron Lung in theaters. Um, Absolutely loved it. Loved the feeling of dread. I To me it didn't scare me. I wasn't scared, but it was just like this dreadful feeling that like kind of like wells over you. Like that's what I always seek out whenever I'm like looking for a new horror book or horror show or even movie, just something that will like fill me with just enough dread to make me feel that I am alive again.
I love this because horror video games are really scary. I cannot play them for that reason. I don't know about anyone else here, but those are far scarier than books. I completely agree. So, okay. Well, thank you for indulging me in that question. And I love these recommendations.
So
So I can't wait to read these.
we got a question. Somebody's asking
Yes.
if they could, because you're giving all these great recommendations, if we would be able to get a list of the books the speakers mentioned. So if you want to send it to me, I will send it to all the attendees.
Sure.
If you guys are
Yes.
interested in doing that, and I'll ask Hannah the same thing. Let's see. Another question is, do you see any trends in horror antagonists? I do feel like I'm seeing more fairy horror being used as a twist, and necromancers, is that how you pronounce it? Are definitely popping up more interestingly as a romance, though. Maybe lots of generational curses too. So are you seeing all of that?
So, I mean,
Yes. Oh, do you want to go first, Vincent?
I was just gonna, because this one technically isn't horror. I mean, I guess like, depending on who you speak to, some people are like, no, this is horrific. And I'm like, it's not like the horror genre though. So I compare We Came to Welcome You a lot to Pluribus because they both have a bitchy alcoholic lesbian at the center of like this hive mind community. My book is definitely like more horror, whereas the show is not horror in the way that they're approaching it. So like this book came out last year, Pluribus started coming out this year, and so like there's a lot of people have been talking about like, oh, hive minds are also like a thing that are starting to like come up in like, horror spaces a lot. Um, I don't know what it says about society. Like I know that there are people that have like studied exactly like, oh, what does it mean when like stories are coming out about this specific issue? Like what does it mean that society is dealing with? I'm just not I haven't like delved into those kind of studies recently, but I'm just so curious to know like why is it that as storytellers, like whatever we're dealing with in society, how does that like get filtered by our brain into this like one horrific story type.
Yeah, and I will say too, sometimes it does seem like there's a trend appearing, but it can be sort of coincidental in the sense that it usually takes a while before a book is published. So, especially if you don't have a contract for it, but you first have to write the whole first draft and then you have to go on sub, it can definitely take a long time. So I think sometimes that's also, 'cause sometimes you see people say like, oh, this book totally ripped off that other book and they came out in the same year. It's like, definitely a coincidence if they're very similar. So I would say for fairies in general, we've already seen that really with romantasy that they've been pretty hot for maybe 15 years at this point. So I think it's really nice to see them more in horror. I'm personally definitely a fan of that. So if that's something you like, I would definitely go watch the Irish horror movie Frewaka. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that was genuinely a horror movie where I felt fairies were scary because I generally like I think it's hard to make them scary, but it can be done. One of the things that I noticed was bog horror, but that may be because my Darn Dreadful Thing had like a bog body, and both of my Blood on Our Tongue also did. So maybe that's just something because I'm attuned to it that I noticed. Hey, like a lot of bog horror is coming out. I didn't really see that much before, but like yeah, that I think that's also what makes it a little harder to see if there's really trends happening because it also just depends a little bit on your own bubble, right? So I definitely think for romance, I think we might be seeing that more because romantasy currently is very, very big, and I think it probably will continue to go strong. But we might see the effect of like readers wanting romance in other genres. And again, like we've already discussed that horror is a very, very good place to go look for that, especially I would say like dark romance is really, really big too, right? And I think what I've noticed, at least for readers of my books, is that there's definitely overlap between the people in the dark romance community who then also enjoy reading my books because there's enough overlap there, though I definitely wouldn't say that my books are dark romance per se. They're definitely just more horror with romance elements. But yeah, I wonder if maybe some stuff is just bleeding into each other at this point.
Thank you.
How apt.
Another question is any horror podcast recommendations? The person says, I'm obsessed with the Watch If You Dare podcast, but I need more.
Okay. I listen to primarily audio dramas. So if you're into like horror audio drama, I know like the big one that everyone says is the Magnus Archives. Still great. It still absolutely slaps. Um, SCP Archives is another one. I actually voice act in that one. Mayfair Watcher Society. I also voice act in. I'm in a lot of podcasts, is evidently. But yeah, so I would say Mayfair's Watcher Society, SCP Archives, The Dead, especially. I've written for The Dead, but yeah, I think those are like my top choices when it comes to like horror audio dramas. If you're into that.
Yeah, so I have to admit that I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, and the ones I do listen to are generally Dutch, so I don't think they're very relevant or accessible for the majority of the people here who are watching. So yeah, I am afraid I don't really have any recommendations.
Yeah, that's okay, Joanna. Yeah, we have plenty of recommendations, so we're all good here. So if anyone has additional questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. I'm loving the questions so far, by the way.
I think we're done.
We're good. Okay, well, thank you all for being here and spending some time with me, and then with our lovely authors, Vincent and Joanna. And I know Hannah would love to thank you as well too. Happy to see so many familiar names and faces in the audience. Hi, Annie. So I just want to say thank you again. Please read all these books. They are such a delight. If you're really into fun horror like I am, like I need horror that makes me laugh. So I would definitely check out all three of these books. So thank you again, you guys, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your publishers for sponsoring and putting your names in. This has been great, and it's been wonderful hearing about your books. And books can be bought at Broad Art, so we hope to see those sales jump with all these wonderful descriptions. And good luck. And we're going to end.